Welcome to our discussion video on inventories under government accounting. So we will discuss here the items of inventories that are normally used in government accounting and how we recognize the receipt and the disposition of inventories in government accounting. Ano ang proper accounting treatment, journal entries to recognize the transactions, and what are the accountable forms and that is needed in documenting the receipt, the disposition, and the disbursement of items related to the purchase or requisitions of inventories. Okay. So at the end of this discussion video, we will account for inventories by a government entity. We describe the procedures in the receipt and the disposition of inventories by a government entity. So inventories under our standards are classified as assets, either as finished goods, work in process, and raw materials. But in government accounting, we also considered yung items such as supplies as items of inventory. So nakasama na dito yung mga office supplies, inventory, and among other items of supply. So when we say finished goods, these are held for sale or distribution in the ordinary course of operations. When we say work in process, we look at it as it is items which are on process of production for sale or distribution, less than 100% completion. When we say raw materials and supplies, which is these are items which is still in the form of materials or supplies to be consumed in the production process or distributed in the rendering of services. So in government accounting, we will encounter items such as inventory held for sale, inventory held for distribution, inventory held for manufacturing, inventory held for consumption, and the semi-expandable property. So isa-isahin natin. When we say in government accounting, although these items ay makikita nyo na mismo doon sa revised chart of accounts, kung ano yung description, kung kailan natin itatag yung isang item as inventory held for sale. So it is better if we cite examples like halimbawa sa medicines for sale in government pharmacies. Yun yung mga items that are included in the account title inventory held for sale. When we say inventory held for distribution, pwede ito sa NFA or sa DSWD. These are items such as rice and other welfare goods held for distribution or para sa mga relief operations. So, kinaklasify muna natin yun as inventory for monitoring. Kasi hindi pwedeng i-recognize agad as expense kasi naka-stockpile yan sa mga warehouse. So, kailangan mayroong recording ng ating inventory account. Inventory held for manufacturing. So, dito na pumapasok yung raw materials na kailangan para doon sa production. So, kung isang government agency is manufacturing a specific or particular item of inventory, kailangan i-recognize natin itong mga inventory na hindi pa natin ipine-place into production as inventory held for manufacturing. Inventory held for consumption, this includes office supplies, inventory, and among others. Okay, semi-expandable property. Okay, this is quite new in government accounting and quite unique in government accounting only. Ito yung mga items of machinery, equipment, furniture and fixtures, and other similar items na in your basic accounting would be classified as PPE. Diba? Kapag furniture and fixture, kinaklasify natin yun as furniture and fixture. Kapag machinery, equipment, kinaklasify natin yun as machinery and equipment. But in government accounting, there is yung tinatawag na semi-expandable inventories or properties. Because of the number of items ng machinery, equipment, furniture and fixtures, and other similar items of PPE, kailangan gumawa ng threshold for us to be able to easily dispense items such as semi-expendable. Kapag when we say semi-expendable, di ba, when the root word is yung expense, and ibig sabihin semi-expendable, kinakapitalize muna natin siya, but later on it will be treated as an expense. So, ano ang threshold natin dito? Kapag yung machinery, equipment, furniture, and fixtures ay below the 15,000 capitalization threshold, yan ay classify mo muna as semi-expendable property. Sir, paano po i-record? The debit semi-expendable property and then credit cash or cash modified disbursement system regular or accounts payable, ganun. So, ang critical dito is the recognition of the account title semi-expendable inventory. So, yung semi-expendable property, kung titingnan mo sa yung revised chart of accounts, marami yan. May semi-expendable office equipment, semi-expendable information and technology equipment, semi-expendable scientific and technical equipment, mga ganun. So, ang gist lang dito is we recognize by debiting semi-expendable property kung ano mang klaseng equipment yan, and then credit mo yung cash or accounts payable for that matter. So, paano po natin ngayon marirecognize as expense yan? So, in practice, ang ginagawa dyan ay after a month, ay nire-recognize na natin yon as an expense. So, debit semi-expendable, for example, office equipment yan, debit semi-expendable office equipment expense, credit semi-expendable office equipment. So, ibig sabihin, initially, ni-recognize mo siya as a semi-expendable property, and then after a month, ni-recognize mo na siya as an expense. So, kin-lose out mo yung expense na yon. So, sir, bakit kailangan i-ganon at hindi na lang idiretso agad doon sa expense account? Total 1 month lang naman pala, because that is what is mandated in the government accounting manual is and what is prescribed by the Commission on Audit. Kasi kailangan natin i-monitor. Hindi kasi pwedeng i-expense mo yan kaagad. Kasi merong form na ginagamit dito. May form pa rin na ginagamit dito to document the property. So, hindi pwedeng agad-agad expense natin yan. Kasi, minomonitor din ito ng property division ng isang government agency at kailangan makita natin na talagang yung semi-expendable is still in the possession of the government agency. Kasi po pwedeng binili yung ganitong klaseng item and then ginamit na lang for personal use. So, hindi pwede yung gano'n. So, may monitoring document pa rin for semi-expendable equipment. Kaya nga, yung iba, ang ginagawa nila to avoid the accountability is that humahanap sila ng mga properties or equipment that are below 15,000 para ang recognition is a semi-expendable property. Okay, I think much for that. How do we measure now the inventories? Under yung basic accounting or financial accounting and reporting, di ba? When we say inventory, we measure it at the lower of cost and net realizable value. But in government accounting, you initially measure inventory at cost kung magkano mo siya binili, and then subsequently mo lang i-measure siya dalawa. So may dalawang classification. When it is goods held for sale, and when it is goods held for distribution. Kapag held for sale, gamitan mo ng LCNRV, the lower of cost and net realizable value. Pero kung held for distribution, the lower of cost and the current replacement cost. So in our book, we will nakadiscuss dyan on what comprises a cost. So, yung cost, it is the purchase cost, excluding the trade discounts, rebates, and other similar deductions in the purchase price. Pero kasama dyan yung direct cost incurred in bringing the asset to its intended location and condition. So, we are essentially reiterating yung andon sa iyong CFAS, yung Conceptual Framework and Accounting Standards related to inventory. Okay? So, cost, when we say cost, This excludes, hindi kasama, yung abnormal amounts of wasted materials, labor, and production overhead because this is treated as an expense or a loss. Selling costs and administrative overheads, hindi yan kasama sa cost. Okay? So when we say the net realizable value, we mean the selling price, the estimated selling price less the estimated cost of completion and estimated selling or disposal cost. Kumbaga yung net realizable value. Kung magkano na lang talaga yung value niyan after deducting all items related to selling and disposal. When we say current replacement cost, this is the cost that the entity would incur to acquire the asset on the reporting date. Kung magkano mo siya magkano ang magagastos mo kung gusto mong palitan yung item na yon. So normally itong mga items na to ay given in the problem, pero kung hindi yan given, basta ang logic nito is that the cost that the entity would incur to acquire the asset on the reporting date, yung replacement cost niya. So, gagamitin mo lang yan if you are looking at an inventory at subsequent measurement. Pero kung initial measurement at yun na yung pagkakabili, yun na siya. Okay? At cost lang. Kung subsequently, i-measure daw natin siya, we have to identify whether it is for sale or whether it is for distribution. Kasi yun lang naman yung dalawang condition kung bakit mo yan i-measure uli, subsequently i-measure. Pero in practice, hindi naman na nangyayari yung subsequent measurement, but in theory, this is what is prescribed. In practice, kung magkano mo na yan in-measure at initially, yun na ang nagiging booking yan all throughout the life of that inventory. Okay, let's proceed with the cost formulas. This is essentially the same with the concept on inventory. Yung cost of goods sold and cost of inventories on hand are determined using these cost formulas. One is a specific identification and weighted average cost. What does specific identification means? Ibig sabihin lang nito, specifically na-identify mo yung equipment, halimbawa yung photocopying machine na nandoon sa warehouse. Alam na natin specifically kung magkano ang cost noon. Hindi na natin siya kailangang idaan sa costing ng weighted averaging kasi nga these are normally items that are not ordinarily interchangeable and those that are segregated for specific projects. Kaya specifically, madaling i-identify. This is the cost of this item. So, kapag kapag naman hindi siya unique or it cannot be segregated among any other projects, ginagamitan natin siya ng weighted average costing. This is used for large numbers of items of inventory that are ordinarily interchangeable or pwedeng pagpalit-palitin. So, this shall be applied under a perpetual inventory system. So, we know what a perpetual inventory system is. Okay? So, as a note, yung FIFO and the periodic inventory system ay hindi po yan ginagamit sa government entities. And madali lang naman ang assignment of cost for inventories dahil in government, in national government agencies, meron din silang tinatawag na electronic national government accounting system, yung ENGAS, which is yung mismong system na ang nagtatag ng average amount every time there is receipt and disposition of inventories. So, automatic na kino-compute doon. But you have to know this because kailangan alam natin i-analyze kung ano yung nandoon sa mismong item, kung paano natin siya tinatag. So, weighted averaging and moving average po ito, ha? Moving average. Every time there is movement in the receipt and disposition, doon magkakaroon ng changes on the computation of the cost of that inventory. Next, when do we recognize as an expense? The carrying amount of an inventory is recognized as expense in the period it is sold, distributed, exchanged, or consumed. Okay, so under page 192, we have an illustration related to the acquisition of an inventory amounting to 1,000. So makikita mo dyan, when it is inventory held for sale, you debit merchandise inventory and then you credit accounts payable. When it is inventory held for manufacturing, you debit raw materials inventory and then credit accounts payable. When it is a semi-expandable inventory or properties, debit semi-expandable machinery, credit accounts payable. When it is inventory held for distribution, you debit welfare goods for distribution and then credit accounts payable. So please be mindful of on the use of the account titles. When it is inventory held for consumption, you debit office supplies inventory, credit accounts payable. Okay, when entity A recognizes the cost of inventory of 800 as an expense, kapag yan ay inventory held for sale, you debit cost of sales, credit merchandise inventory 800. When it is inventory held for manufacturing, okay, may separate entries dyan on page 193. When it is semi-expandable property, you debit semi-expandable machinery and equipment expenses 800 and then credit semi-expandable machinery 800. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. When it is inventory held for distribution, you debit welfare goods expense and then credit welfare goods for distribution 800. When it is inventory held for consumption, office supplies expense and then credit office supplies inventory. So tina-transfer lang from inventory account to expense account. Okay, tingnan natin yung inventory held for manufacturing under page 193. You debit work in process inventory 2,000 and then credit raw materials inventory 800, credit direct labor 900, credit manufacturing overhead 300. So dito po, nire-recognize natin yung transfer ng raw material, direct labor, and overhead to the production process. Okay? Kung paano mo lang siya nire-recognize on your cost accounting before, ganon din siya in government accounting when it is an inventory held for manufacturing. So kaya mapapansin mo, meron siyang debit finished goods, credit work in process, 2,000. Then, kung nabenta na yan, debit cost of sale, credit finished goods, 2,000. Okay. Meron siyang additional notes dito. Inventories costing 200 are found to have a net realizable value of 150 and current replacement cost of 180. So, kung matatandaan mo, kapag ito ay inventory held for sale, this is subsequent measurement na ito, debit impairment loss inventories, credit merchandise inventory, 50. Kapag inventory held for distribution, debit impairment loss inventories, then credit welfare goods for distribution. Okay? Kasi nga, kapag inventory held for sale, di ba? Matatandaan mo, kapag inventory held for sale, mini-measure natin siya subsequently at LCNRV. Pero kapag for distribution siya, mini-measure natin siya at lower of cost and the current replacement cost. In this case, mas mababa yung current replacement cost. Kaya, nag-recognize tayo ng impairment loss para bumaba yung inventory value ng asset na yan. Okay. Let's look at the receipt and disposition of inventories. So, paano daw natin yan tinitreat? So, one, kapag yung receipt, ibig sabihin nito, bumili ka ng iyong inventory. So this is the process. This will summarize the process indicated in the book. One, the end users prepare the purchase request. So dito po nagsisimula yung pagbili natin ng inventory. Nagpe-prepare siya ng purchase request. So pwedeng office supplies inventory, pwedeng office equipment na below 15,000 para i-classify as semi-expandable. So it will depend kung anong klaseng inventory ang gusto nilang i-request. Documented under the PR or the purchase request. So at the end, I think at the end of the course, you will be familiar with all of the forms used in government accounting. As I will require you to also submit samples of this, yung mga forms natin and how to fill out itong mga forms na ito. So once the end users, when we say the end users, ito po yung purchasing unit. So, kung sino yung gagamit nung mismong inventory na nire-request, yun lang ibig sabihin ng end users. The authorized official now, at step 2, prepares the purchase order. So, yung PR now, gagawa ng PR and then gagawa ng purchase order yung authorized official which now prepares the purchase order. So itong purchase order, ito na po yung ginagamit na document na ibinibigay natin sa supplier when making a purchase, 'di ba? So this is signed by the signatories, the head of the agency, the requesting unit, and among others. So yung PR, saan siya ginagamit? The PR is as a supporting document to the purchase order. Pero ang formal document na ibinibigay natin outside is the purchase order. So once the purchase order, so there are rules related to the purchase order. Kasi andyan sa purchase order, naka-indicate po yung specifications, quantities, and agreed price of the items being purchased. So yung PO, this is the contract now between the entity, the government, and the supplier. Remember that before the purchase order must be substantiated with a canvas o yung quotation from at least 3 suppliers required for purchases amounting to 1,000 and above. So kung 1,000 and above ang purchase order mo, dapat meron niyang canvas from at least 3 suppliers na naghingi tayo ng quotation para makita natin kung kanino dapat tayo bumili dun sa pinakamababang presyo. And of course, without sacrificing quality. Number 3, delivery receipt and the inspection and acceptance report. So once na meron na tayong napili at naibigay na natin yung purchase order, then ang kasunod na niyan is delivery. So when the items are delivered, yung property division will receive the items in the delivery receipt. Delivery receipt, yan ay manggagaling doon sa mismong supplier. The inspection and acceptance report, ipiprepare yan ng property division. Anong nakalagay sa inspection and acceptance report? Yung lahat ng specifications ng mga items na na-receive mo. So dapat this is the IAR shall be in conformity with the specifications, quantities, and among other items na nakalagay sa yung PO. Kasi kung hindi, erroneous yung pagkaka-receive, di ba? Kasi dapat kung ano yung nandun sa PO, yun din yung mismong ni-receive mo at yung in-inspect and in-accept mo. Okay? So once it is okay, na receive na pirmahan yung receive portion ng delivery receipt, kung ibibigay yan sa iyo, nasa iyo yan, may copy ka ng delivery receipt, and then nakapag-prepare ka din ng inspection and acceptance report, i-forward mo na yung delivery receipt, inspection and acceptance report, and the purchase order to the inspector, to the property inspector. So the property inspector now look at the conformance of the delivery items to the specifications in both the PO and the DR. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung nag-receive, meron pa siyang property inspector. Okay? But they are essentially in the same division. Yung nag-receive nung delivery at saka itong property inspector, they are essentially in the same division. So, normally, yung property inspector, yan yung superior nung staff na nag-receive. Yun yung immediate superior nung staff na nag-receive nung mga items. Okay? Normally, pipirmahan lang naman niya yan kung okay na yan. And then, number 5, the property division now will record it through the stock card keeper, records the accepted deliveries in the stock card. So, meron pong tinatawag na stock card. Okay, the stock card now is a document that will show the quantity ng lahat ng na-receive and na-issue nating inventory. So, kailangan, kasi dahil meron ka na-receive na inventory, dapat lang idagdag mo yan sa stock card dun sa warehouse mo, di ba? So, yun po siya. Number 6, we record. So, dapat yung record kasi ng property at record ng accounting division ay tally at a given point in time. At all times dapat, pero dahil nga sa documentation, dapat at a point in time ay tally yan. The accounting division records the accepted deliveries in the books of accounts in the supplies ledger card. So, meron po tinatawag sa accounting na supplies ledger card. This is essentially dapat tally dun sa stock card under the property division. So, nandun lang po yung quantity and monetary amounts of all the receipts and issuances as well as the available balance of a particular inventory at any given point in time. Okay, so dapat yung SC, yung stock card, and the supplies ledger card are periodically reconciled. Okay, number 7. So once it is okay, the property division prepares now the disbursement voucher. So kung matatandaan mo, the disbursement voucher is the document that will initiate the payment of the items. So kung makikita mo, na-receive mo na yung item, tas ngayon ka palang nagpa-process ng disbursement voucher o yung cheque. Para yung disbursement voucher is a document to support that will is a document that will authorize the payment of the transaction. So the disbursement voucher together with the supporting documents will be forwarded to the accounting division. So ano ang mga supporting document niyan? Lahat po yung nandoon, yung mga delivery receipt, inspection and acceptance report, purchase order, the purchase request. Okay, lahat yan nandoon. Okay, so disbursement voucher, so pupunta naman na yan sa yung accounting division to ipaprocess nila for payment. Then gagawa nila yan ng cheque and then papapirmahan yung cheque sa lahat ng sa signatory, or kung pwede yung idaan under the LD, yung auto debit account, yung LD-DAP ADA, yung diniscuss natin on the modes of payment in the previous videos. So pwede siyang dumaan. Pwedeng through check, through the commercial check, or through the cash modified disbursement system regular, depending on the fund. Pero kung yan ay general fund, dapat yan ay nasa MDS check or LD-DAP ADA, yung auto debit account. Okay? Ang first priority is the LD-DAP or the auto debit account. Kung wala, MDS checks. Okay? Then, tsaka pa lang yung commercial checks. Next, the disposition. So, asa na ngayon yung inventory? Nandoon sa yung warehouse. The end users will now request for your nagre-request sila ng halimbawa bond papers o ganyan. So end user will now prepare requisition and issue slip. Then the property division prepares the report of supplies and material issued. Okay, issued ito, issued. RSMI. Then the accounting records the items issued in the books of accounts and then updates the supplies ledger card kasi bawas naman ito. This is a disposition, so this is a negative item in your SLC. Okay? Sa stock card din ganun, babawasan mo siya. Okay. Then, i-issue na natin yung items doon. Si property division na ang mag-i-issue ng items, magbibigay doon sa unit na nangangailangan ng bond paper, for example, or ng photocopying machine, or ng kung ano pa mang items of inventory. So, may document such as the RIS. The RSMI is this is monthly prepared. Ang ini-indicate lang under the RSMI is that kung ilan yung available balance. So, dapat yung balance ng iyong inventory, for example, office supplies inventory in the RSMI is the same as that of recorded in the supplies ledger card in the accounting division. So itong RSMI ay monthly po ito piniprepare. Okay? Dapat periodically monthly nire-reconcile yung RSMI na yan dito sa records ng accounting. Okay? There are items that are also of importance, yung mga documents na ginagamit in the disposition of inventory. So, meron tayong tinatawag na waste materials report. Ano itong waste materials report? The waste materials report, document lang ito na ginagawa ng property division para doon sa mga inventory na sira na, spoiled, o mga wasted materials. So, kailangan i-report mo yan before mo yan i-dispose. I-document mo. Hindi pwedeng basta itatapon mo yan. Kasi yan ay naka-indicate sa yung inventory. Yan ay naka-indicate din as a good item in the accounting record. So, kailangan ng waste materials report para tanggalin mo siya sa iyong stock card at para yan ay i-recognize as a wastage in the accounting books. So, kailangan may copy ang accounting yan. Mag-prepare ka ng waste materials report. Normally, monthly, pwedeng maggawa tayo ng waste materials report para dun sa mga items na hindi na natin pwedeng i-issue sa end users. Next, report on the physical count of inventories. This is also monthly. Report on the physical count of inventories. So, yung inventory natin doon sa iyong warehouse, dapat meron tayong report on the physical count. So, may physical counting po tayong ginagawa dyan. Report of accountability for accountable forms. Used to report the movement and status of accountable forms in the possession of an officer. So, this will just monitor yung mga forms na ginagamit natin. For example, yung mga RIS, yung kasi yan ay pre-numbered. So, kailangan meron tayong report on that accountable forms. Next, the inventory custodian slip. This is prepared when issuing semi-expandable property. So, di ba? Sabi ko kanina, under the semi-expandable property, meron document. Diyan. Kasi yan ay essentially PPE, pero below lang siya ng 15,000 threshold. So, kailangan may document. Hindi pwedeng basta-basta i-expense yan. Kasi kung iisipin mo, yan ay anong mga item yan? Halimbawa, yung mga printer na below 15,000, yan ay classified na semi-expendable. So, i-expense mo na lang ba yan agad-agad? So, dapat may document pa rin to monitor kung kanino sino ang may custody ng inventory na yun. So, yun yung inventory custodian slip. Ito yung ginagamit na form when we issue semi-expendable property. So, ina-acknowledge yan nung naka-receive at minomonitor pa rin yan ng property division, although in-expense mo na yan. Okay? So, kahit na yan ay in-expense mo sa libro, ay minomonitor pa rin yan ng property division. So, at the end of the retirement of that employee, kailangan niya pa rin ibalik yan dahil yan ay nasa inventory custodian slip pa rin. Okay? So, kung sira na yan, pwede naman yan i-return at pwede na nating i-note doon sa inventory custodian slip sa ICS niya na yan ay returned na. But kung yan ay hindi pa, properly monitored dapat yan ang property division. Okay, so I think that ends the discussion on the concept or related to the inventories. Thank you.